Juan, quick thought before we go. There's Mark Esper, the Defense Secretary, about what you expect to hear tonight from the president.
Well, I think the president's strong point is the economy. When you ask the American people about the economy, you get a strong 60+% rating for this president. Of course, the other side of the story is when you ask them about re-elect, he's not the choice. Right now you have Democrats from Sanders, Buttigieg, and Biden beating him.
Thank you, Juan. We'll take a moment right now as the cabinet continues to follow in to listen to the action down on the floor as we pause for the top of the hour. President Trump, just minutes away. Our special coverage of tonight's State of the Union address continues. A live look at the U.S. Capitol. It's a beautiful evening here in Washington as we are now just moments away from President Trump, tonight's State of the Union address. Good evening from Washington. I'm Bret Baier.
Good evening, everybody. From Washington, I'm Martha MacCallum. Any moment now, we expect that President Trump will make his way into the chamber. You see Mike Pence, the Vice President, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, waiting for him this evening. They have had a very tense relationship, the President and Nancy Pelosi. So that'll be one of the first moments that we'll witness as all of this takes place. We'll see the familiar call, or hear it rather, of the Sergeant at Arms. He will make his way down the aisle, greeted by lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats.
Of course, he'll lay out his agenda to those lawmakers and to you, the American people. Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts, live on the North Lawn of the White House. A quick preview of what we can expect to hear tonight. John.
Brett and Martha, good evening to you. The president about to give what he hopes will be the first of 4 more State of the Unions to come as the president seeks re-election. The overarching theme will be a return to American greatness. Among the things that the president will say is that he has shattered the mentality of American decline and has rejected the downsizing of America's destiny. The president will go over the record of his administration, the myriad trade deals, the USMCA, China, Japan, South Korea. Soon he hopes one with the European Union. The fact that 3.5 million more working-age people have joined the workforce. There are 12,000 new American factories, and that the United States is now the #1 producer of oil and gas in the world. Of course, these are things that the president has talked about before. New tonight will be some new measures on education. The president will say, let's put it up on the screen, the next step forward in building an inclusive society is making sure that every young American gets a great education and the opportunity to achieve the American dream. No parent should be forced to send their child to a failing government school. The president will make a pledge in health care to protect pre-existing conditions, saying that he will never let socialism destroy health care. He'll talk about paid family leave, take on sanctuary cities, talk about securing the border, and working to end wars in the Middle East. A lot of people said that his takeout of Qasem Soleimani stoked tensions in the Middle East. The president will say that was part of my plan to reduce tensions. Brett, Martha?
All right, John, thanks. Not a lot of conversation between the House Speaker and the Vice President. Not a lot of chit-chatting there as we wait. And this is a unique moment. There you see the president in the holding room right outside the House chamber. And he will make the historic walk, as he has now. This will be his 3rd time. This is Paul Irving, the House Sergeant at Arms, announcing the President of the United States.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
President Trump shaking hands as he walks down the aisle there. We know that there are several members of the House who chose not to be there. That seems to be the trend through these State of the Union addresses, but obviously a huge crowd and a big turnout for the president this evening as he makes his way up to the podium. There's Chief Justice John Roberts. They've had, he's been watching him quite closely throughout the course of these impeachment hearings over which he has been presiding. Chris, you have a quick comment?
Yeah, one fascinating thing that Nancy Pelosi said, you can see that very half-hearted clap. She and the president have not spoken to each other since October when they had that blow-up at the White House. They were at a meeting over Syria. He called her a third-grade politician. She said, with you, all roads lead to Putin. The two of them have not spoken, the speaker and the president, since that day.
You know, they have one cabinet secretary who is the designated survivor. It's not just a television show. It's actually a real thing in case there's an attack or something. And that is the Interior Secretary, David Bernhardt, tonight. Not a lot of exchange there as the president delivers his third State of the Union address. We see the First Lady and Rush Limbaugh at her side.
Very poignant to see Rush Limbaugh there standing next to the president. This was obviously an invitation that was extended to him to come up in the middle of beginning his treatments for lung cancer. He and the president really got to know each other much better after the president decided to run for president. And he's been very supportive of him on his radio show. So a very nice gesture from the president to Rush Limbaugh in this evening.
Members of Congress, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States, and my fellow citizens, 3 years ago, we launched the Great American Comeback. Tonight, I stand before you to share the incredible results. Jobs are booming, incomes are soaring, poverty is plummeting, crime is falling, confidence is surging, and our country is thriving and highly respected again. America's enemies are on the run. America's fortunes are on the rise, and America's future is blazing bright. The years of economic decay are over. The days of our country being used, taken advantage of, and even scorned by other nations are long behind us. Gone too are the broken promises, jobless recoveries, tired platitudes, and constant excuses for the depletion of American wealth, power, and prestige. In just 3 short years, we have shattered the mentality of American decline
and we have rejected the downsizing of Americans' destiny. We have totally rejected the downsizing. We're moving forward at a pace that was unimaginable just a short time ago, and we are never, ever going back. I am thrilled to report to you tonight that our economy is the best it has ever been. Our military is completely rebuilt, with its power being unmatched anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. Our borders are secure. Our families are flourishing. Our values are renewed. Our pride is restored. And for all of these reasons, I say to the people of our great country and to the members of Congress, the state of our union is stronger than ever before. The vision I will lay out this evening demonstrates how we are building the world's most prosperous and inclusive society, one where every citizen can join in America's unparalleled success and where every community can take part in America's extraordinary rise. From the instant I took office, I moved rapidly to revive the U.S. economy, slashing a record number of job-killing regulations, enacting historic and record-setting tax cuts, and fighting for fair and reciprocal trade agreements. Our agenda is relentlessly pro-worker, pro-family, pro-growth, and most of all, pro-American. Thank you. We are advancing with unbridled optimism and lifting our citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed very, very high. Since my election, we have created 7 million new jobs, 5 million more than government experts projected during the previous administration. The unemployment rate is the lowest in over half a century. And very incredibly, the average unemployment rate under my administration is lower than any administration in the history of our country. If we hadn't reversed the failed economic policies of the previous administration, the world would not now be witnessing this great economic success. The unemployment rate for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans has reached the lowest levels in history. African American youth unemployment has reached an all-time low. African American poverty has declined to the lowest rate ever recorded. The unemployment rate for women reached the lowest level in almost 70 years, and last year women filled 72% of all new jobs added. The veterans' unemployment rate dropped to a record low. The unemployment rate for disabled Americans has reached an all-time low. Workers without a high school diploma have achieved the lowest unemployment rate recorded in U.S. history. A record number of young Americans are now employed. Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare. In 8 years under the last administration, over 300,000 working-age people dropped out of the workforce. In just 3 years of my administration, 3.5 million people, working-age people, have joined the workforce. Since my election, the net worth of the bottom half of wage earners has increased by 47%, 3 times faster than the increase for the top 1%. After decades of flat and falling incomes, wages are rising fast, and wonderfully, they are rising fastest for low-income workers who have seen a 16% pay increase since my election. This is a blue-collar boom. Real median household income is now at the highest level ever recorded. Since my election, U.S. stock markets have soared 70%, adding more than $12 trillion to our nation's wealth, transcending anything anyone believed was possible. This is a record. It is something that every country in the world is looking up to. They admire. Consumer confidence has just reached amazing new highs. All of those millions of people with 401ks and pensions are doing far better than they have ever done before, with increases of 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100% and even more. Jobs and investments are pouring into 9,000 previously neglected neighborhoods, thanks to Opportunity Zones, a plan spearheaded by Senator Tim Scott as part of our great Republican tax cuts. In other words, wealthy people and companies are pouring money into poor neighborhoods or areas that haven't seen investment in many decades, creating jobs, energy, and excitement. This is the first time that these deserving communities have seen anything like this. It's all working. Opportunity zones are helping Americans like Army veteran Tony Rankins from Cincinnati, Ohio. After struggling with drug addiction, Tony lost his job, his house, and his family. He was homeless. But then Tony found a construction company that invests in opportunity zones. He is now a top tradesman, drug-free, reunited with his family, and he is here tonight. Tony, keep up the great work, Tony. Thank you, Tony. Our roaring economy has, for the first time ever, given many former prisoners the ability to get a great job and a fresh start. This second chance at life is made possible because we passed landmark criminal justice reform into law. Everybody said that criminal justice reform couldn't be done, but I got it done, and the people in this room got it done. Thanks to our bold regulatory reduction campaign, the United States has become the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world, by far. With the tremendous progress we have made over the past 3 years, America is now energy independent, and energy jobs, like so many other elements of our country, are at a record high. We are doing numbers that no one would have thought possible just 3 years ago. Likewise, we are restoring our nation's manufacturing might, even though predictions were, as you all know, that this could never, ever be done. After losing 60,000 factories under the previous 2 administrations, America has now gained 12,000 new factories under my administration, with thousands upon thousands of plants and factories being planned or being built. Companies are not leaving. They are coming back to the USA. The fact is that everybody wants to be where the action is, and the United States of America is indeed the place where the action is. One of the biggest promises I made to the American people was to replace the disastrous NAFTA trade deal. In fact, unfair trade is perhaps the single biggest reason that I decided to run for president. Following NAFTA's adoption, our nation lost 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs. Many politicians came and went, pledging to change or replace NAFTA, only to do so, and then absolutely nothing happened. But unlike so many who came before me, I keep my promises. We did our job. 6 days ago, I replaced NAFTA and signed the brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement into law. The USMCA will create nearly 100,000 new high-paying American auto jobs and massively boost exports for our farmers, ranchers, and factory workers. It will also bring trade with Mexico and Canada to a much higher level, but also to be a much greater degree of fairness and reciprocity. We will have that fairness and reciprocity, and I say that finally because it's been many, many years that we were treated fairly on trade. This is the first major trade deal in many years to earn the strong backing of America's labor unions. I also promised our citizens that I would impose tariffs to confront China's massive theft of America's jobs. Our strategy has worked. Days ago, we signed the groundbreaking new agreement with China that will defend our workers, protect our intellectual property, bring billions and billions of dollars into our treasury, and open vast new markets for products made and grown right here in the USA. For decades, China has taken advantage of the United States. Now we have changed that. But at the same time, we have perhaps the best relationship we've ever had with China, including with President Xi. They respect what we've done because, quite frankly, they could never really believe that they were able to get away with what they were doing year after year, decade after decade, without someone in our country stepping up and saying, "That's enough." Now we want to rebuild our country, and that's exactly what we're doing. We are rebuilding our country. As we restore American leadership throughout the world, we are once again standing up for freedom in our hemisphere. That's why my administration reversed the failing policies of the previous administration on Cuba. We are supporting the hopes of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to restore democracy. The United States is leading a 59-nation diplomatic coalition against the socialist dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. Maduro is an illegitimate ruler, a tyrant who brutalizes his people, but Maduro's grip on tyranny will be smashed and broken. Here this evening is a very brave man who carries with him the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of all Venezuelans. Joining us in the gallery is the true and legitimate president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido. Mr. President, please take this message back to your family. Thank you, Mr. President. Great honor. Thank you very much. Please take this message back that all Americans are united with the Venezuelan people in their righteous struggle for freedom. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Socialism destroys nations, but always remember freedom unifies the soul. To safeguard American liberty, we have invested a record-breaking $2.2 trillion in the United States military. We have purchased the finest planes, missiles, rockets, ships, and every other form of military equipment, and it's all made right here in the USA. We are also getting our allies, finally, to help pay their fair share. I have raised contributions from other NATO members by more than $400 billion, and the number of allies meeting their minimum obligations has more than doubled. And just weeks ago, for the first time since President Truman established the Air Force, more than 70 years earlier, we created a brand new branch of the United States Armed Forces. It's called the Space Force. Very important. In the gallery tonight, we have a young gentleman, and what he wants so badly, 13 years old, Ian Lawnfay. He's an 8th grader from Arizona. Ian, please stand up. Ian has always dreamed of going to space. He was the first in his class and among the youngest at an aviation academy. He aspires to go to the Air Force Academy, and then he has his eye on the Space Force. As Ian says, most people look up at space. I want to look down on the world. But sitting behind Ian tonight is his greatest hero of them all. Charles McGee was born in Cleveland, Ohio, 1 century ago. Charles is one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen, the first black fighter pilots, and he also happens to be Ian's great-grandfather. Incredible story. After more than 130 combat missions in World War II, he came back home to a country still struggling for civil rights and went on to serve America in Korea and Vietnam. On December 7th, Charles celebrated his 100th birthday. A few weeks ago, I signed a bill promoting Charles McGee to Brigadier General, and earlier today, I pinned the stars on his shoulders in the Oval Office General McGee, our nation salutes you. Thank you, sir. From the Pilgrims to the founders, from the soldiers at Valley Forge to the marchers at Selma, and from President Lincoln to the Reverend Martin Luther King, Americans have always rejected limits on our children's future. Members of Congress, we must never forget that the only victories that matter in Washington are victories that deliver for the American people. The people are the heart of our country. Their dreams are the soul of our country, and their love is what powers and sustains our country. We must always remember that our job is to put America first. The next step forward in building an inclusive society is making sure that every young American gets a great education and the opportunity to achieve the American dream. Yet for too long, countless American children have been trapped in failing government schools. To rescue these students, 18 states have created school choice in the form of opportunity scholarships. The programs are so popular that tens of thousands of students remain on a waiting list. One of those students is Janiyah Davis, a fourth grader from Philadelphia. Janiyah. Janiyah's mom, Stephanie, is a single parent. She would do anything to give her daughter a better future. But last year, that future was put further out of reach when Pennsylvania's governor vetoed legislation to expand school choice to 50,000 children. Janiyah and Stephanie are in the gallery. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here with your beautiful daughter. Thank you very much. But Janiyah, I have some good news for you, because I am pleased to inform you that your long wait is over. I can proudly announce tonight that an opportunity scholarship has become available. It's going to you, and you will soon be heading to the school of your choice. Now I call on Congress to give 1 million American children the same opportunity Janiyah has just received. Pass the Education Freedom Scholarships and Opportunities Act, because no parent should be forced to send their child to a failing government school. Every young person should have a safe and secure environment in which to learn and to grow. For this reason, our magnificent First Lady has launched the Be Best initiative to advance a safe, healthy, supportive, and drug-free life for the next generation. Online, in school, and in our communities. Thank you, Melania, for your extraordinary love and profound care for America's children. Thank you very much. My administration is determined to give our citizens the opportunities they need, regardless of age or background. Through our pledge to American workers, over 400 companies will also provide new jobs and education opportunities to almost 15 million Americans. My budget also contains an exciting vision for our nation's high schools. Tonight, I ask Congress to support our students and back my plan to offer vocational and technical education in every single high school in America. To expand equal opportunity, I am also proud that we achieved record and permanent funding for our nation's historically black colleges and universities. A good life for American families also requires the most affordable, innovative, and high-quality health care system on earth. Before I took office, health insurance premiums had more than doubled in just 5 years. I moved quickly to provide affordable alternatives. Our new plans are up to 60% less expensive and better. I've also made an ironclad pledge to American families. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions. And we will always protect your Medicare, and we will always protect your Social Security, always. The American patient should never be blindsided by medical bills. That is why I signed an executive order requiring price transparency. Many experts believe that transparency, which will go into full effect at the beginning of next year, will be even bigger than health care reform. It will save families massive amounts of money for substantially better care. But as we work to improve Americans' health care, there are those who want to take away your health care, take away your doctor, and abolish private insurance entirely. 132 lawmakers in this room have endorsed legislation to impose a socialist takeover of our health care system, wiping out the private health insurance plans of 180 million very happy Americans. To those watching at home tonight, I want you to know we will never let socialism destroy American health care. Over 130 legislators in this chamber have endorsed legislation that would bankrupt our nation by providing free taxpayer-funded health care to millions of illegal aliens, forcing taxpayers to subsidize free care for anyone in the world who unlawfully crosses our borders. These proposals would raid the Medicare benefits of our seniors and that our seniors depend on, while acting as a powerful lure for illegal immigration. That is what is happening in California and other states. Their systems are totally out of control, costing taxpayers vast and unaffordable amounts of money. If forcing American taxpayers to provide unlimited free health care to illegal aliens sounds fair to you, then stand with the radical left. But if you believe that we should defend American patients and American seniors, then stand with me and pass legislation to prohibit free government health care for illegal aliens. This will be a tremendous boon to our already very strongly guarded southern border, where, as we speak, a long, tall, and very powerful wall is being built. We have now completed over 100 miles and have over 500 miles fully completed in a very short period of time. Early next year, we will have substantially more than 500 miles completed. My administration is also taking on the big pharmaceutical companies. We have approved a record number of affordable generic drugs, and medicines are being approved by the FDA at a faster clip than ever before. And I was pleased to announce last year that for the first time in 51 years, the cost of prescription drugs actually went down. And working together, Congress can reduce drug prices substantially from current levels. I've been speaking to Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa and others in Congress in order to get something on drug pricing done, and done quickly and properly. I'm calling for bipartisan legislation that achieves the goal of dramatically lowering prescription drug prices. Get a bill on my desk and I will sign it into law immediately. With unyielding commitment, we are curbing the opioid epidemic. Drug overdose deaths declined for the first time in nearly 30 years. Among the states hardest hit, Ohio is down 22%, Pennsylvania is down 18%, Wisconsin is down 10%, and we will not quit until we have beaten the opioid epidemic once and for all. Protecting Americans' health also means fighting infectious diseases. We are coordinating with the Chinese government and working closely together on the coronavirus outbreak in China. My administration will take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from this threat. We have launched ambitious new initiatives to substantially improve care for Americans with kidney disease, Alzheimer's, and those struggling with mental health. And because Congress was so good as to fund my request, new cures for childhood cancer, and we will eradicate the AIDS epidemic in America by the end of this decade. Almost every American family knows the pain when a loved one is diagnosed with a serious illness. Here tonight is a special man, beloved by millions of Americans, who just received a stage 4 advanced cancer diagnosis. This is not good news, but what is good news is that he is the greatest fighter and winner that you will ever meet. Rush Limbaugh, thank you for your decades of tireless devotion to our country. And Rush, in recognition of all that you have done for our nation, the millions of people a day that you speak to and that you inspire, and all of the incredible work that you have done for charity, I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I will now ask the First Lady of the United States to present you with the honor, please. Rush and Catherine, congratulations. Thank you, Catherine. As we pray for all who are sick, we know that America is constantly achieving new medical breakthroughs. In 2017, doctors at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City delivered one of the earliest premature babies ever to survive. Born at just 21 weeks and 6 days and weighing less than a pound, Ellie Schneider was a born fighter. Through the skill of her doctors and the prayers of her parents, little Ellie kept on winning the battle of life. Today, Ellie is a strong, healthy 2-year-old girl sitting with her amazing mother, Robin. In the gallery, Ellie and Robin, we are glad to have you with us tonight. Ellie reminds us that every child is a miracle of life. And thanks to modern medical wonders, 50% of very premature babies delivered at the hospital where Ellie was born now survive. It's an incredible thing. Thank you very much. Our Our goal should be to ensure that every baby has the best chance to thrive and grow just like Ellie. That is why I'm asking Congress to provide an additional $50 million to fund neonatal research for America's youngest patients. That is why I'm also calling upon members of Congress here tonight to pass legislation finally banning the late-term abortion of babies. Whether we are Republican, Democrat, or Independent, surely we must all agree that every human life is a sacred gift from God. As we support America's moms and dads, I was recently proud to sign the law providing new parents in the federal workforce paid family leave, serving as a model for the rest of the country. Now I call on Congress to pass the bipartisan Advancing Support for Working Families Act, extending family leave to mothers and fathers all across our nation. $40 million American families have an average $2,200 extra thanks to our child tax credit. I've also overseen historic funding increases for high-quality child care, enabling 17 states to help more children, many of which have reduced or eliminated their wait lists altogether. And I sent Congress a plan with a vision to further expand access to high-quality child care and urge you to act immediately. To protect the environment, days ago I announced that the United States will join the 1 Trillion Trees Initiative, an ambitious effort to bring together government and private sector to plant new trees in America and all around the world. We must also rebuild America's infrastructure. I ask you to pass Senator John Barrasso's highway bill to invest in new roads, bridges, and tunnels all across our land. I'm also committed to ensuring that every citizen can have access to high-speed internet, including and especially in rural America. A better tomorrow for all Americans also requires us to keep America safe. That means supporting the men and women of law enforcement at every level, including our nation's heroic ICE officers. Last year, our brave ICE officers arrested more than 120,000 criminal aliens charged with nearly 10,000 burglaries, 5,000 sexual assaults, 45,000 violent assaults, and 2,000 murders. Tragically, there are many cities in America where radical politicians have chosen to provide sanctuary for these criminal, illegal aliens. In sanctuary cities, local officials order police to release dangerous criminal aliens to prey upon the public instead of handing them over to ICE to be safely removed. Just 29 days ago, a criminal alien freed by the sanctuary city of New York was charged with the brutal rape and murder of a 92-year-old woman. The killer had been previously arrested for assault, but under New York sanctuary policies, he was set free. If the city had honored ICE's detainer request, his victim would still be alive today. The state of California passed an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for criminal, illegal immigrants, a very terrible sanctuary with catastrophic results. Here is just one tragic example. In December 2018, California police detained an illegal alien with 5 prior arrests, including convictions for robbery and assault. But as required by California's sanctuary law, local authorities released him. Days later, the criminal alien went on a gruesome spree of deadly violence. He viciously shot one man going about his daily work. He approached a woman sitting in her car and shot her in the arm and in the chest. He walked into a convenience store and wildly fired his weapon. He hijacked a truck and smashed into vehicles, critically injuring innocent victims. One of the victims is a terrible, terrible situation. Died, 51-year-old American named Rocky Jones. Rocky was at a gas station when this vile criminal fired 8 bullets at him from close range, murdering him in cold blood. Rocky left behind a devoted family, including his brothers, who loved him more than anything else in the world. One of his grieving brothers is here with us tonight. Jody, would you please stand? Jody, thank you. Jody, our hearts weep for your loss, and we will not rest until you have justice. Senator Thom Tillis has introduced legislation to allow Americans like Jody to sue sanctuary cities and states when a loved one is hurt or killed as a result of these deadly practices. I ask Congress to pass the Justice for Victims of Sanctuary Cities Act immediately. The United States of America should be a sanctuary for law-abiding Americans, not criminal aliens. In the last 3 years, ICE has arrested over 5,000 wicked human traffickers, and I have signed 9 pieces of legislation to stamp out the menace of human trafficking domestically and all around the globe. My administration has undertaken an unprecedented effort to secure the southern border of the United States. Before I came into office, if you showed up illegally on our southern border and were arrested, you were simply released and allowed into our country, never to be seen again. My administration has ended catch and release. If you come illegally, you will now be promptly removed from our country. Very importantly, we entered into historic cooperation agreements with the governments of Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. As a result of our unprecedented efforts, illegal crossings are down 75% since May, dropping 8 straight months in a row. And as the wall rapidly goes up, drug seizures rise, and the border crossings are going down and going down very rapidly. Last year, I traveled to the border in Texas and met Chief Patrol Agent Raul Ortiz. Over the last 24 months, Agent Ortiz and his team have seized more than 200,000 pounds of poisonous narcotics, arrested more than 3,000 human smugglers, and rescued more than 2,000 migrants. Days ago, Agent Ortiz was promoted to Deputy Chief of Border Patrol, and he joins us tonight. Chief Ortiz, please stand. A grateful nation thanks you and all of the heroes of Border Patrol and ICE. Thank you very much. Thank you. To build on these historic gains, we are working on legislation to replace our outdated and randomized immigration system with one based on merit, welcoming those who follow the rules, contribute to our economy, support themselves financially, and uphold our values. With every action, my administration is restoring the rule of law and reasserting the culture of American freedom. Working with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, thank you, Mitch, and his colleagues in the Senate, we have confirmed a record number of 187 new federal judges to uphold our Constitution as written. This includes 2 brilliant new Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Thank you. And we have many in the pipeline. My administration is also defending religious liberty, and that includes the constitutional right to pray in public schools. In America, we don't punish prayer. We don't tear down crosses. We don't ban symbols of faith. We don't muzzle preachers and pastors. In America, we celebrate faith. We cherish religion. We lift our voices in prayer, and we raise our sights to the glory of God. Just as we believe in the First Amendment, we also believe in another constitutional right that is under siege all across our country. So long as I am president, I will always protect your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. In reaffirming our heritage as a free nation, we must remember that America has always been a frontier nation. Now we must embrace the next frontier, America's manifest destiny in the stars. I am asking Congress to fully fund the Artemis program to ensure that the next man and the first woman on the moon will be American astronauts, using this as a launching pad to ensure that America is the first nation to plant its flag on Mars. My administration is also strongly defending our national security and combating radical Islamic terrorism. Last week, I announced a groundbreaking plan for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Recognizing that all past attempts have failed, we must be determined and creative in order to stabilize the region and give millions of young people the chance to realize a better future. 3 years ago, the barbarians of ISIS held over 20,000 square miles of territory in Iraq and Syria. Today, the ISIS territorial caliphate has been 100% destroyed, and the founder and leader of ISIS, the bloodthirsty killer known as al-Baghdadi, is dead. We are joined this evening by Carl and Marcia Mueller. After graduating from college, their beautiful daughter, Carla, became a humanitarian aid worker. She once wrote, "Some people find God in church, some people find God in nature, some people find God in love. I find God in suffering. I've known for some time what my life's work is, using my hands as tools to relieve suffering." In 2013, while caring for suffering civilians in Syria, Kayla was kidnapped, tortured, and enslaved by ISIS and kept as a prisoner of al-Baghdadi himself. After more than 500 horrifying days of captivity, al-Baghdadi murdered young, beautiful Kayla. She was just 26 years old. On the night that U.S. Special Forces operations ended al-Baghdadi's miserable life, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, received a call in the Situation Room. He was told that the brave men of the elite Special Forces team that so perfectly carried out the operation had given their mission a name, Task Force 814. It was a reference to a special day, August 14th, Kayla's birthday. Carl and Marcia, America's warriors, never forgot Kayla, and neither will we. Thank you. Every day, America's men and women in uniform demonstrate the infinite depth of love that dwells in the human heart. One of these American heroes was Army Staff Sergeant Christopher Hake. On his second deployment to Iraq in 2008, Sergeant Hake wrote a letter to his one-year-old son, Gage. "I will be with you again," he wrote to Gage. "I will teach you to ride your first bike, build your first sandbox, watch you play sports, and see you have kids also. I love you, son. Take care of your mother. I am always with you, Daddy." On Easter Sunday of 2008, Chris was out on patrol in Baghdad when his Bradley fighting vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb. That night, he made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Sergeant Hake now rests in eternal glory in Arlington, and his wife Kelly is in the gallery tonight, joined by their son, who is now a 13-year-old and doing very, very well. To Kelly and Gage, Chris will live in our hearts forever. He is looking down on you now. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you both very much. The terrorist responsible for killing Sergeant Hake was Qasem Soleimani, who provided the deadly roadside bomb that took Chris's life. Soleimani was the Iranian regime's most ruthless butcher, a monster who murdered or wounded thousands of American service members in Iraq. As the world's top terrorist, Soleimani orchestrated the deaths of countless men, women, and children. He directed the December assault and went on to assault U.S. forces in Iraq, was actively planning new attacks when we hit him very hard. And that's why last month, at my direction, the U.S. military executed a flawless precision strike that killed Soleimani and terminated his evil reign of terror forever. Our message to the terrorists is clear. You will never escape American justice. If you attack our citizens, you forfeit your life. In recent months, we have seen proud Iranians raise their voices against their oppressive rulers. The Iranian regime must abandon its pursuit of nuclear weapons, stop spreading terror, death, and destruction, and start working for the good of its own people. Because of our powerful sanctions, the Iranian economy is doing very, very poorly. We can help them make a very good and short-time recovery. It can all go very quickly, but perhaps they are too proud or too foolish to ask for that help. We are here. Let's see which road they choose. It is totally up to them. As we defend American lives, we are working to end America's wars in the Middle East. In Afghanistan, the determination and valor of our warfighters has allowed us to make tremendous progress, and peace talks are now underway. I am not looking to kill hundreds of thousands of people in Afghanistan, many of them totally innocent. It is also not our function to serve other nations as law enforcement agencies. These are warfighters that we have, the best in the world, and they either want to fight to win or not fight at all. We are working to finally end America's longest war and bring our troops back home. War places a heavy burden on our nation's extraordinary military families, especially spouses like Amy Williams from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and her two children, 6-year-old Eliana and 3-year-old Rowan. Amy works full-time and volunteers countless hours helping other military families. For the past 7 months, she has done it all while her husband, Sergeant First Class Townsend Williams, is in Afghanistan on his 4th deployment in the Middle East. Amy's kids haven't seen their father's face in many months. Amy, your family's sacrifice makes it possible for all of our families to live in safety and in peace, and we want to thank you. Thank you, Amy. But Amy, there is one more thing. Tonight we have a very special surprise. I am thrilled to inform you that your husband is back from deployment. He is here with us tonight, and we couldn't keep him waiting any longer. Welcome home, Sergeant Williams. Thank you very much. As the world bears witness tonight, America is a land of heroes. This is a place where greatness is born, where destinies are forged, and where legends come to life. This is the home of Thomas Edison and Teddy Roosevelt, of many great generals, including Washington, Pershing, Patton, and MacArthur. This is the home of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman, the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, and so many more. This is the country where children learn names like Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett, and Annie Oakley. This is the place where the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth and where Texas patriots made their last stand at the Alamo. The beautiful, beautiful Alamo. The American nation was carved out of the vast frontier by the toughest, strongest, fiercest, and most determined men and women ever to walk on the face of the earth. Our ancestors braved the unknown, tamed the wilderness, settled the Wild West, lifted millions from poverty, disease, and hunger, vanquished tyranny and fascism, ushered the world to new heights of science and medicine, laid down the railroads, dug out the canals, raised up the skyscrapers, and ladies and gentlemen, our ancestors built the most exceptional republic ever to exist in all of human history, and we are making it greater than ever before. This is our glorious and magnificent inheritance. We are Americans. We are pioneers. We are the pathfinders. We settled the new world. We built the modern world. And we changed history forever by embracing the eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hand of Almighty God. America is the place where anything can happen. America is the place where anyone can rise. And here, on this land, on this soil, on this continent, the most incredible dreams come true. This nation is our canvas, and this country is our masterpiece. We look at tomorrow and see unlimited frontiers just waiting to be explored. Our brightest discoveries are not yet known. Our most thrilling stories are not yet told. Our grandest journeys are not yet made. The American age, the American epic, the American adventure has only just begun. Our spirit is still young. The sun is still rising. God's grace is still shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
President Trump, in his third address to the nation tonight, just short of about an hour and a half, as we watch the interaction here. It comes in the middle of a huge week for the president as he hits his highest approval ratings in Gallup today.
Let me just interrupt. Did you just see how Speaker Nancy Pelosi ripped up the speech right behind the president as he's still there?
I missed that moment as he was... Oh, wow. That's something. That is something. And they had an interesting moment like that on the way in, which I was just about to mention as well. He's on the eve of his likely acquittal in the Senate tomorrow. But the speech, as I was just going to say, began with a bit of an awkward moment. The speaker extended her hand after the transfer of the speech, and then he appeared to turn away. At any rate, she sat stone-faced, really, throughout most of the speech. But the president began by lauding the success of the economy as the great American comeback, as he called it, saying the years of economic decay are over, citing strong jobs and numbers and trade deals as he comes through here, shaking hands and getting pats on the back. A lot of moving moments in this speech as well, touching on different aspects of the president's policies and initiatives. In a surprise, he introduced Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido, citing a tie there on the way out, as the true and legitimate president of Venezuela, saying President Maduro is a tyrant, slamming socialism, sort of perhaps a nod to the coming election and some of the tendencies of Bernie Sanders, for example. He said freedom unifies the soul and socialism destroys nations. So also mentioning a young man who is going to be in the Space Force. His grandfather was in the Tuskegee Air Force, and that was a really moving moment as well. So quite a few really moving moments there as we watched all of this play out tonight, Brett.
Yeah, we'll just also point out there was the handshake moment, but there was also the introduction of the president by the speaker, where she did not say the traditional intro of "It is my high honor and distinct personal privilege to present you the President of the United States." She just said the President of the United States. It's all, back and forth. This is an hour and 17 minutes, interrupted for applause 129 times. A lot of those interruptions fell into the standard party line. Half the chamber standing up. There were the big bipartisan moments. Juan Guaido, obviously with Venezuela. Also, the moment you mentioned about the aspiring astronaut and his great-grandfather, who is the newly promoted Brigadier General Charles McGee, one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen. It was partisan applause, but legendary radio talk show host Rush Limbaugh, fighting lung cancer, receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom in that chamber tonight from the First Lady. But by far the most powerful moments, Martha, had to be these honoring of the two people killed by the two terrorists, al-Baghdadi and Qasem Soleimani. Emotional moments with the families left behind in the chamber. And as you mentioned, you have to just think about this. All of this happens. Gallup has the president at his highest approval rating of his presidency, 49%, 63% of his handling of the economy, 94% approval among Republicans, and this is on the eve of a vote on the U.S. Senate to convict or acquit the president in his impeachment trial, something he did not mention once. So with that, let's bring in our panel. Senior political analyst Brit Hume, Chris Wallace, host of Fox News Sunday, and Dana Perino, host of the Daily Briefing. Brit, your thoughts?
Well, I thought the president has renewed and I think furthered a tradition that began back in 1982 when Ronald Reagan recognized the famous Lenny Skutnik, the guy who had saved a woman's life in the Potomac River after a plane crash out here. And since then, it has been one guest after another, and the presidents bring in people that anybody would find a reason to cheer, and he of course hopes, every president who's done this hopes to associate himself with them. And I thought the people he chose tonight were uniquely well suited to do that, and I think the president gained something from that, and automatically would, because it sets traps for his critics. They may not want to cheer his policies, they may not agree with his achievements, but it's awfully hard for them not to cheer some of these people he recognized here tonight.
Well, I would say that the theme of the speech was the Great American Comeback, which I thought was a really great way to build a speech around. And you could take all of those guests that the staff obviously worked very hard to find, because it fit each of those moments. He also asked Congress to do a lot of things. They won't do a lot of them, and he'll end up being able to call them the do-nothing Congress.
Chris.
From the first cheers, chants from the Republicans of 4 more years, this was the first major speech of the Donald Trump re-election campaign, and it was a very effective speech. You could see all that he is going to have to campaign on. Long list of economic accomplishments, long list of national security, fight on the war on terror, reached out to his conservative base with a very strong statement of pro-life feelings, and of course the honoring of Rush Limbaugh, who's a conservative icon. I thought the most interesting part of the speech, and perhaps the most contentious, was on health care, where the president was arguing that he is going to be the person who saves health care, and the Democrats rather would destroy it with a socialist takeover. The Democrats, they won in 2018 with that, and they think they're going to do well again in 2020. This is going to be the main battleground of this campaign.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more and the Democratic response after a quick break. Stay with us.
If you looked at America like a bird and that was all you knew, would you really understand it with just that point of view? We've got a different way to look at it from right here on the ground. We don't just see United States, we see United Towns. We're grateful for what you bring and all the sparks you've shown and the thousands of towns that we get to call home.
Whatever she's in is because of me.
Back off.
Welcome back to our State of the Union coverage. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel joins us from Statuary Hall with a preview of what to expect from the Democratic response tonight. Mike?
Brett, Martha, good evening to you. Gretchen Whitmer's the 48-year-old governor of Michigan, clearly a battleground state. She has emphasized to Democrats they need to talk about issues that Americans care about, such as clean drinking water, better jobs, safe roads. She's expected to go directly at the president's economic argument. Let's put it on the screen. Quote, "It doesn't matter what the president says about the stock market. What matters is that millions of people struggle to get by or don't have enough money at the end of the month after paying for transportation, student loans, or prescription drugs." Seen as potentially a rising star, is going to speak at East Lansing High School, where her daughters go to school, and potentially a rising star on the national stage. We'll see how it goes on the big stage tonight. Brett, Martha?
Mike, thanks.
Let's go to Lansing, Michigan, where Governor Gretchen Whitmer is ready to give the Democratic response to the State of the Union.
We're here today with families and parents, teachers, and most importantly, students. I want to thank you all for coming, but tonight I'm going to talk to those of you who are watching at home. I'd need a lot more than 10 minutes to respond to what the president just said. So instead of talking about what he is saying, I'm going to highlight what Democrats are doing. After all, you can listen to what someone says, but to know the truth, watch what they do. Michiganders are no different from Americans everywhere. We love our families and want a good life today and a better life tomorrow for our kids. We work hard, and we expect our government to work hard for us as well. We have grit and value loyalty, and we still root for the Detroit Lions. We and all Americans might be weary of today's politics, but we must stay engaged. Our country, our democracy, our future demand it. We're capable of great things when we work together. We cannot forget that despite the dishonesty and division of the last few years, and that we heard tonight from the President of the United States, together we have boundless potential. And young Americans are proving that every day by taking action. That's what I want to focus on tonight. Monty Scott is 13 years old and lives in Muskegon Heights, Michigan. Monty Street was covered in potholes. They were ankle deep, and he got tired of waiting for them to get fixed. So he grabbed a shovel and a bucket of dirt and filled them in himself. During my campaign, people told me to fix the damn roads because blown tires and broken windshields are downright dangerous. And car repairs take money from rent, childcare, or groceries. And we, the Democrats, are doing something about it. In Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker passed a multi-billion-dollar plan to rebuild their roads and bridges. Governor Phil Murphy is replacing lead pipes in New Jersey. All across the country, Democratic leaders are rebuilding bridges, fixing roads, expanding broadband, and cleaning up drinking water. Everyone in this country benefits when we invest in infrastructure. Congressional Democrats have presented proposals to keep us moving forward, but President Trump and the Republicans in the Senate are blocking the path. When it comes to infrastructure, Monty has tried to do more with a shovel and a pile of dirt than the Republicans in D.C. have with the Oval Office and the U.S. Senate. Bullying people on Twitter doesn't fix bridges. It burns them. Our energy should be used to solve problems. And it's true for healthcare too. For me, for so many Americans, healthcare is personal, not political. When I was 30, I became a member of the sandwich generation. That means I was sandwiched between two generations of my own family for whom I was the primary caregiver. I was holding down a new job, caring for my newborn daughter, as well as my mom at the end of her brain cancer battle. I was up all night with a baby, and during the day, I had to fight my mom's insurance company when they wrongly denied her coverage for chemotherapy. It was hard. It exposed the harsh realities of our workplaces, our healthcare system, and our childcare system. And it changed me. I lost patience for people who are just talk and no action. So as a state senator, I worked with a Republican governor and legislature to expand health care coverage to more than 680,000 Michiganders under the Affordable Care Act. Today, Democrats from Maine to Montana are expanding coverage and lowering costs. In Kansas, Governor Laura Kelly is working across the aisle to bring Medicaid coverage to tens of thousands. In New Mexico, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham enshrined ACA protections into law. Every Democrat running for president has a plan to expand health care for all Americans. Every one of them has supported the Affordable Care Act with coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. They may have different plans, but the goal is the same. President Trump sadly has a different plan. He's asking the courts to rip those life-saving protections away. It's pretty simple. Democrats are trying to make your health care better. Republicans in Washington are trying to take it away. Think about kids like 17-year-old Blake Carroll from Idaho, who organized a fundraiser to pay for his mom's colon cancer treatment. Or 19-year-old Ebony Myers from Utah, who sells art to help pay for her own rare genetic disorder treatment. No one should have to crowdsource their health care, not in America. But the reality is, not everyone in America has a job with health care and benefits. In fact, many have jobs that don't even pay enough to cover their monthly expenses. It doesn't matter what the president says about the stock market. What matters is that millions of people struggle to get by or don't have enough money at the end of the month after paying for transportation, student loans, or prescription drugs. American workers are hurting. In my own state, our neighbors in Wisconsin and Ohio, Pennsylvania, and all over the country, wages have stagnated while CEO pay has skyrocketed. So when the president says the economy is strong, my question is, strong for whom? Strong for the wealthy who are reaping rewards from tax cuts they don't need? The American economy needs to be a different kind of strong. Strong for the science teacher spending her own money to buy supplies for her classroom. Strong for the single mom picking up extra hours so she can afford her daughter's soccer cleats. Strong for the small business owner who has to make payroll at the end of the month. Michigan invented the middle class, so we know if the economy doesn't work for working people, it just doesn't work. Who fights for hardworking Americans? Democrats do. In the U.S. House, Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Democrats passed a landmark bill on equal pay, another bill to give 30 million Americans a raise by increasing the minimum wage, and groundbreaking legislation to finally give Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices for America's seniors and families. Those 3 bills and more than 275 other bipartisan bills are just gathering dust on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's desk. Senator McConnell, America needs you to move those bills. Meanwhile, Democrats across the country are getting things done. Pennsylvania's Governor Tom Wolf is expanding the right to overtime pay. Michigan is too. Because if you're on the clock, you deserve to get paid. Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak and North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper are working to give hard-working teachers a raise. And speaking of the classroom, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers unilaterally increased school funding by $65 million last year. In Colorado, Governor Jared Polis has enacted free all-day kindergarten. And in 29 states, we've helped pass minimum wage hikes into law, which will lift people out of poverty and improve lives for families. That's strength. That's action. Democracy takes action. And that's why I'm so inspired by young people. They respond to mass shootings, demanding policies that make schools safer. They react to a world that's literally on fire, with fire in their bellies, to push leaders to finally take action on climate change. They take on a road filled with potholes with a shovel and some dirt. It's what gives me great confidence in our future. And it's why sometimes it feels like they're the adults in the room. But it shouldn't have to be that way. It's not their mess to clean up. It's ours. The choices we make today create their reality tomorrow. Young people, I'm talking to you and your parents and grandparents. Democrats want safe schools. We want everyone to have a path to a good life, whether it's through a union apprenticeship, a community college, a 4-year university, without drowning in debt. We want your water to be clean. We want you to love who you love and to live authentically as your true selves. And we want women to have autonomy over our bodies. We want our country welcoming and everyone's vote counted. 2020 is a big year. It's the year my daughter Sherry will graduate from high school. It's also the year she'll cast her first ballot, along with millions of young Americans. The two things are connected, because walking across a graduation stage is as important as walking into the voting booth for the first time. Her future, all our kids' futures, will be determined not just by their dreams, but by our actions. As we witness the impeachment process in Washington, there are some things each of us, no matter our party, should demand. The truth matters. Facts matter. And no one should be above the law. It's not what those senators say. Tomorrow, it's about what they do that matters. Remember, listen to what people say, but watch what they do. It's time for action. Generations of Americans are counting on us. Let's not let them down. Thank you for listening. God bless America. Good night.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer from the great state of Michigan. And in front of a crowd there, this is a challenge for the Democratic or Republican response, what the other party response to the State of the Union address. They had a crowd because we've seen some efforts without a crowd that sometimes seem stilted or just don't come off in the wake of such a grand event like a State of the Union address on the floor of the House chamber. So she was basically talking about the big issues that Democrats are fighting over, saying that they could be better at health care, at infrastructure, and about taking care of people like she sees in the state of Michigan.
Yep. She's a rising star in the Democrat Party, a governor from Michigan, and she gets gets a lot of attention. She talked about potholes. I think "Fix the Damn Roads" was her slogan when she ran for governor. She's only been in office for 13 months, so we'll keep an eye on her. But it is always a tough job to do that rebuttal because you don't have the kind of, the grand surroundings of the House chamber, of course. But let's get right to our panel because we want to bring in some of the interesting things that happened at the end of the night there. Joining us also tonight is Byron York, chief political correspondent of the Washington Examiner, and Juan Williams, columnist for The Hill and co-host of The Five. Juan, let's start with these couple of moments between Nancy Pelosi and the president. The first one that we have is when he entered the chamber and handed her the speech, which is tradition, and there was a missed handshake here. Watch this.
Now, to be fair, he might not have seen the outreach. Yeah. We don't know. But she clearly reaches her hand out at that moment. But the second moment.
Then, after that, at the end of the speech, there's this.
God bless America. Thank you very much.
Ooh.
I mean, that's a show. She made quite a show of standing up, very straight and tall and ripping those papers quite intentionally. Juan, your thoughts on this?
Well, we live in a time of great political polarization, and, unfortunately, you heard Governor Whitmer just a moment ago speak about dishonesty and division in our country when she was talking about people who get something done versus people who just utter words and rhetoric. So when I was watching tonight, what struck me was, picking up on the idea that this is the start of the president's campaign, that he was less about carnage and division and much more, it seemed to me, in a rather low-key address for him, talking about compassion. And I specifically noticed how often he was really directing so many of his comments, and even the people in the gallery, to Black America. You think about that young woman who's going to get the Opportunity Scholarship, the general and the young man who's going to be in the Space Force, the general, of course, now a brigadier general today. And you think about the promise of more money for historically black colleges and universities. I think he was trying to speak quite directly to some of the people in minority America who may have been turned off to him, and I think he's trying to limit that kind of opposition going forward.
Well, I mean, also think about criminal justice reform, Juan.
Correct.
The ad during the Super Bowl pointing that out, the First Step Act, and perhaps an effort to outreach to some of these African-American communities to say Democratic leadership hasn't done what you think it should have done. Give me a try, that sort of pitch. Byron, your thoughts on the speech and the contrasts here?
Well, I thought it was kind of a surreal evening. I mean, impeachment was the elephant in the room for a lot of the time. The president never said a word about it, but it seemed clear that he and the Speaker of the House just hate each other. So it was just an odd scene. And then finally, Governor Whitmer actually brought it up and brought up the fact that the Senate is voting on it tomorrow. And she also took a few shots at the president, saying bullying people on Twitter doesn't fix bridges, it burns them. So, I mean, there was a lot of underlying hostility there, but also to connect to something that Britt said a little while ago, the president also took these set pieces. He created these really touching set pieces and took them one step farther than many previous addresses. Rush Limbaugh is there. Let's present him the Medal of Freedom right there. Let's tell the young girl that she's got the scholarship. Let's produce the young family's father home from the war. So it was an extraordinary scene and an extraordinary show at the same time.
It really was. I mean, Britt pointed out the origins of this kind of bringing someone into the room and celebrating them, and it really has become almost the meat of these speeches over the years. It's sort of the bridge to get to the policy idea along the way, and these people are sort of the example that gets them there. Juan, how effective was that tonight? And do you think that the president, if there was any effort to sort of bring people together after this impeachment vote, which is going to happen tomorrow, it doesn't look like that's the direction that we're headed, at least from the feeling and the tension that we saw in some of the corners of that room.
Corners? How about right behind him? You guys were just talking about Pelosi ripping up the speech. I got to tell you, right off the bat, I was struck by how many Democrats chose not to attend. And secondly, Brit Hume, Bret Baier, and I have sat there sometimes and talked about the people who shake hands as the president comes in the chambers. Tonight, you didn't see a lot of those House members. Tonight, it looked like a GOP rally and the chance of 4 more years. And I thought to myself, gosh, this is more divided than we're accustomed to seeing, even when you had a president who was not a Republican, not popular, or a Democrat, not popular with Republicans. But I do think that when the president makes an effort to try to say, I am lowering the temperature in this speech, it's an indication, I think, that he believes that the road to higher approval ratings and therefore re-election comes from saying to the American people, I can be more presidential. I don't have to always be acerbic or belligerent, bullying in some, and especially to white suburban women who are a problem for him right now politically, that I can reach out to minority communities, I can be open and more compassionate, and I think that's the message he wanted to send tonight.
I agree with you, and I think that the fact that he didn't mention impeachment was in and of itself a moment.
Yeah.
The fact that he's going to be acquitted tomorrow, this president hasn't held back his thoughts most times. Gentlemen, thank you. Final thoughts from Britt, Dana, and Chris when we come back.
I am thrilled to inform you that your husband is back from deployment. He is here with us tonight, and we couldn't keep him waiting any longer.
Our retirement plan with Voya gives us confidence.
We can spend a bit now, knowing we're prepared for the future.
Surprise!
We renovated the guest room.
Why did you rip the speech up, Madam Speaker?
Because it was the courteous thing to do, considering the alternatives.
It was the courteous thing to do. Why did you rip up the speech? Yeah. It was the courteous thing to do, considering the alternatives, is what she said.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know what to say about that. Britt, you want to jump in on that?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. Did she do that so conspicuously as a gesture of solidarity with so many in her party who absolutely loathe this president, or is she genuinely kind of perpetually frustrated and enraged by this guy who she thinks is unworthy of the office, who couldn't possibly succeed in it, who's worthy of impeachment, and yet here he is tonight. His approval rating on the rise, the economy booming, all the things that he cited in the speech which are real, and she's got to sit there and listen to that, thinking all along that he doesn't deserve to be there and she shouldn't have to be sitting back while he's out front and with head up and banners flying. I think there's an element of rage in it.
Chris, you attended that rebuttal.
Yeah.
There was a little ripping up the speech.
As I said at the beginning a couple of hours ago, I've been to a lot of these where there are congressional leaders of one party talking about the president of the other party, and I've never seen as visceral and an emotional a reaction, a sense of disapproval of the president of the opposing party as I saw today, somewhat from Chuck Schumer, much more so from Nancy Pelosi. At one point, we were asking her, could you work with this president? Is there anything you could work on? And she expressed again her strong disapproval of the president. And then she said, though, he's not that important to pass up an opportunity to lower drug prices or to build infrastructure. So she was in effect saying, there's some things that we're going to talk about and we would hold our nose and deal with them, but we'd hold our nose. She plain doesn't like them.
I mean, you think about all the situations that bring her to this frustration point, perhaps. You've got the Iowa caucuses last night, the beginning of her party's presidential run, which did not go well. You look at the fact that initially she said, to say the least, that initially she said that she didn't want to do impeachment. She said it's too divisive, it's not going to be politically right for us. So now she got stuck with it. Tomorrow he's about to get acquitted, and he has the highest approval numbers that he's had in a long time. So, everything is frustrating her to this extent, I suppose, Dana.
Well, she could have possibly had the upper hand a little bit in the conversation post-speech, because she could say, I reached out my hand to the president, he ignored me or didn't see me, whatever, but she had the upper hand. But now, the ripping up of the speech, I think there were names in there of people who had died, American citizens who had died. I think it was really disrespectful, but also super unsophisticated and not like her. And I think that when she rips it up, she also might be showing some frustration to her caucus, because she looks over at them. I don't know if it was in solidarity, but might have been in frustration. Like, I told you, we should not have done impeachment, and here we are. And he's got the wind at his back, and now it's a choice between him with this great economy and us, which we can't get our act together.
Well, Chuck Schumer doesn't want to be left out. This is his ripping of the paper, a statement just released. The president's speech tonight was much more like a Trump rally than a speech a true leader would give. It was demagogic, undignified, and untruthful, highly partisan, he says. It's really amazing.
You know, it really wasn't, was it?
No, it
I mean,
wasn't.
we've heard Trump be all those things, perhaps.
Yes.
This speech tonight really wasn't.
Arguably, wasn't it one of his better speeches?
I would think that most people, would, neutral observers would have to say yes.
I mean, this is a speech that ended with, we're Americans, we're pioneers, we're pathfinders, we settled the new world, we built the modern world, we changed history forever by embracing the eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hands of Almighty God. I mean, there's a lot of very unifying rhetoric in this
speech. But one of the things that the Democrats said in this pre-buttal, I'm just reporting what they said, was he's going to have a night. But it's what he does the other 364, or this being a leap year, 365 days of the year. And they were arguing, you got to see what he actually does. And that's what drives them.
When they put the budget up, what's in the budget?
Exactly.
How does he govern?
And they point out, he spent the first year trying to repeal Obamacare, and now he's joined the lawsuit to try to gut Obamacare. So, they're saying this rhetoric and this conciliatory tone is not who he is.
And yet there's a lot of issues that you bring up. They said that we're going to give him this night. He should have this night. They didn't do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And a lot of the things that he wants Congress to pass are things that Democrats would typically want: child care, all the lower prescription drugs. I mean, these are actually things. They're not like your typical limited government type of conservative speech. This was basically giving them what they want.
This is the beginning of what we saw last night and the beginning of the 2020 race.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it kind of shape up here of where these lines are going to be drawn. We just don't know the Democratic part of the equation.
That's right. And it can't have been too far from Pelosi and even Schumer's mind that the party in Iowa had a terrible night last night. And here we are, day 2 after Iowa, and we still don't know what the vote tally out there is.
Let me just quickly say, I asked Speaker Pelosi about that and about the Republican argument. Hey, these guys can't run a caucus. They're going to run health care. She really got upset at that and said, those are Republican talking points that cut me off. She didn't like that. She didn't rip up my notepad, though. No,
okay.
she didn't.
All right. Panel, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks for joining us for our special coverage of President Trump's State of the Union address and the Democratic response.
We will cover what comes next here in Washington every day, 6 p.m. on Special Report. And
for the story at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Stay with us. Continuing coverage. Fox News Channel, Hannity starts right now.
Welcome to Hannity. We begin tonight with a Fox News alert. What a night this has been. We have a fully loaded show. I begin tonight. I have seen a lot of State of the Unions over the years. Tonight, perhaps by far the best I've ever seen. I am now in my 31st year on the radio, my 24th year. I'm honored to work here at the Fox News Channel. Tonight, every American should be proud of their country. We are now looking and observing a tale of two very different Americans. You always hear about choice elections. We're about to have one in 273 days. On one side, you have the Democratic Party, the do-nothing Democrats. They have offered nothing but 3 years of hate, rage, never-ending witch hunts, socialism, conspiracy theories, lies, slander, besmirchment, character assassination. Now, it's the party that wants to what? Nationalize everything, even supporting infanticide and abortion after birth, as the Virginia governor told us. On the other side, you saw the president tonight. He is pushing prosperity, freedom, security, and moments ago, he delivered the compelling, uplifting speech of his life, highlighting America's groundbreaking successes over the past 365 days, really the last 3 years. Jobs in America booming, income in America soaring, poverty in America is plummeting, crime is falling, confidence surging, the country is thriving, and we are highly respected all over the world. Tonight was about American greatness. It includes brave men and women who make this country the single greatest place God ever gave man. And moments ago, the president honored the parents of Kayla Mueller, the U.S. aid worker who was murdered by ISIS. He also honored tonight a little girl who received a new scholarship tonight to advance her life and her education. We met a general tonight who was one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen. And we met a brave member of this country's Border Patrol, as well as the brother of a man killed by an illegal immigrant tonight. And this special moment with the family of an American soldier serving abroad. It brought the House down. Take a look.
But Amy, there is one more thing. Tonight we have a very special surprise. I am thrilled to inform you that your husband is back from deployment. He is here with us tonight, and we couldn't keep him waiting any longer.
Wow, that's shock and awe. Now, despite all of these powerful moments, what did we see tonight? Democrats barely cracking a smile. I have no idea what Nancy Pelosi was doing. It almost looked like a Saturday Night Live skit for the entire speech. They are clearly living tonight in a very different alternative reality, another America that I don't recognize, one full of nonstop, never-ending hatred, rage, and witch hunts and conspiracy theories. Look at your screen. Tonight, Pelosi trying so hard. Look how miserable she was. At the end of the president's speech tonight, she ripped up her copy of the president's speech and has just defended doing so. One of the most classless things ever done in the history of the State of the Union. And all throughout the night, she could barely bring herself to stand up for the roaring economy or any of America's great achievements. Let's take a look.
The veterans' unemployment rate dropped to a record low. A record number of young Americans are now employed. Real median household income is now at the highest level ever recorded. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions. Drug overdose deaths declined for the first time in nearly 30 years.
Wow, pretty powerful. Now, all throughout the night, we will be listing and we'll be showing the president's accomplishments that he talked about tonight, accomplishments for we, the American people. Pelosi didn't even stand for the little girl who received a scholarship. Is that not something every American can agree on? Apparently not. Take a look.
An opportunity scholarship has become available. It's going to you, and you will soon be heading to the school of your choice.
Remember when we were talking about Baltimore and we identified 13 high schools, all these liberal cities that have been run for decades by liberal Democrats, 13 high schools in Baltimore alone where not a single kid proficient in reading and math, not one. We can't fail our kids like that. God bless that girl, and good luck to her and her future. And Nancy Pelosi barely even applauding any of the president's special guests. Imagine being a Democrat and having that much rage, that much hate, that much contempt in your heart. And of course, Pelosi's Democratic colleagues were just as bad. Many of them, they wouldn't even cheer for the historic advancement when the president mentioned women in the workplace. 72% of the new jobs created for women in this country. Watch this, a tale of two Americas.
And last year, women filled 72% of all new jobs added.
See a lot of women in white. That's not worth standing for? Now, despite the unyielding rage from the Democrats, the president, well, he delivered a powerful, optimistic, patriotic speech with real statistics and success behind it. Conservatism works. It's working now, and it's working for the American people. Take a look.
Jobs are booming. Incomes are soaring. Poverty is plummeting. Crime is falling. Confidence is surging. And our country is thriving and highly respected again. This is a blue-collar boom. Members of Congress, we must never forget that the only victories that matter in Washington are victories that deliver for the American people. The people are the heart of our country. Their dreams are the soul of our country, and their love is what powers and sustains our country. We must always remember that our job is to put America first.
Public servants serving the people. Look at your screen. Since the president has taken office, our economy has generated over 7 million new jobs. The unemployment rate is now the lowest in over half a century. The unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans have reached the lowest levels in history. We have a record number of young Americans that are now employed. African American poverty has now declined to the lowest rate ever recorded. A 70-year record low unemployment for women in this country. 72% of all new jobs added are going to women in the workforce. Veteran unemployment, that rate dropping again to a record low. The unemployment rate for disabled Americans, a record low, all-time low. The unemployment rate for workers without a high school diploma is now at a record low. 7 million of our fellow Americans are off of food stamps. 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare. The net worth of the bottom half of wage earners in America has increased by a whopping 47%. Low-income workers in America have seen a 16% pay increase. Median household income is now at the highest level ever recorded. 12,000 new factories. Who said those jobs are not coming back? A booming stock market. That means America is winning. America's forgotten men and women are winning. Tonight's speech was not just about the massive success of the Trump agenda. The president also, he took time along with the First Lady, Melania Trump, and they gave a very special award to one of the single most influential, important, stoic voices this country has ever known. Let's take a look.
Here tonight is a special man, beloved by millions of Americans, who just received a stage 4 advanced cancer diagnosis. This is not good news, but what is good news is that he is the greatest fighter and winner that you will ever meet. Rush Limbaugh, thank you for your decades of tireless devotion to our country.
I thought the left celebrated the free, open exchange of ideas and opinions, but apparently not conservative ones. And we pray for Rush Limbaugh tonight. He is a fighter. Well-deserved. My friend Neil Bortz called Rush the Babe Ruth of talk radio. He paved the way for all of us that do opinion and talk radio in the country. There was a forest. He cleared the path. We all got to walk through an easier path because of him. Perhaps no one in modern history has advanced the cause of patriotism, free speech, love of country, love of the Constitution of the United States more than Rush. Without Rush, well, nothing I do here would be possible. That path that he forged for all of us in the conservative movement all over America and fought each and every single day to make this a more perfect union. Everyone who has ever battled cancer knows someone who has battled cancer. You do understand how difficult, how earth-shattering this diagnosis can be. You know, some of the same politicians that have, well, they go on controversial shows like Don Imus, who just passed away, or Howard Stern. They go on his show. He said controversial things. We ought to celebrate freedom of speech, whether you agree or disagree. But we are blessed to live in a country that, thank God, we have the greatest, the best scientists and doctors and healthcare professionals anywhere in the world. And Rush is blessed with a wonderful family, a deep, unyielding faith, belief in God. We all pray for his speedy recovery tonight. And coming up, we'll have more of that powerful moment. But we also have full reaction tonight, analysis to the president's address from Senator Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Ivanka Trump, so much more. We also have a lot of other big breaking news to cover today. And we will start with what is known as the dumpster fire of the Iowa Democratic Caucus. The Trump campaign called it the sloppiest train wreck in history. That's probably an understatement. It has been more than 24 hours since the votes took place. We still do not have the full results. And for the better part of the day, we didn't have any results at all. Nothing. Democratic Party blaming it on a coding error in its election software and problems with its backup system. Wow, kind of reminds me of their promises of Obamacare. Keep your doctor, keep your plan, on average save $2,500 a year. Millions lost their doctors, millions lost their plan. We all pay almost 200% more. We didn't save anything, and almost 40% of Americans only have one option for an Obamacare exchange. That's the promise of the left. Same people that have destroyed one big city in this country after another. They want to control your health care. They want to control your businesses. Now they want to nationalize the entire energy sector, the lifeblood of the world's economy. And they can't even count a few thousand votes in the state of Iowa. I don't trust them. It's pathetic. And tonight it is clear, and it's not actually not clear, why a huge percentage of the vote is MIA. We have no idea what really happened. One thing we can tell you, and that's certain, Bernie Sanders, his supporters, well, it looks like they're after Bernie again. Seemed like we were an island here when poor Donna Brazile had to call Bernie Sanders, as we told you last night, and say, yeah, they stacked the deck against you. They rigged it. Are they rigging it again? Likely Iowa frontrunner could have been robbed. Nobody will know. Quid pro quo Joe, he has been given ample cover for what looks like a pathetic fourth-place finish, a disaster for him. Now, this comes on the heels of more panicked attempts by the DNC officials. Well, they want to change the rules again because they think Bernie has a shot at winning. Look at this political report that came out yesterday. Some have discussed, quote, changing the rules to give the superdelegates more power. They want the votes to count like they did in Hillary's 2016 election. And recently, the party rewrote debate qualifications. Well, Biden's falling apart, so maybe it'll help Mike Bloomberg in case we need him at some point. And by the way, maybe he can buy his way onto the debate stage. Even Michael Moore is furious about that. This is 2016 on steroids all over again. History more than repeating itself. Remember, they cheated Bernie, and then they used a dirty Russian dossier that they leaked to the press, and then we found out that they took away one person's civil rights, Carter Page, his civil liberties. Why? So they could backdoor and spy on a presidential campaign of Donald Trump, then his transition team, and then deep into his presidency. All of that happened, and the dirty Russian dossier, Hillary Clinton paid for. Apparently, Democrats didn't care about Russian interference only if it was Donald Trump, which didn't happen, or Ukrainian interference, which we're told also happened, as chronicled by the January 11th, 2017 Politico investigation and by a Ukrainian court. That's right, a DNC operative going into the Ukrainian embassy to get dirt on Donald Trump and others. Nobody seemed to care. Like they don't care about quid and pro and quo Joe. You're not getting the billion unless you fire the prosecutor investigating my zero-experience son being paid millions. If this continues, we are on the verge of a civil war within the Democratic Party. They will soon nominate a radical, devout communist. Well, in the case of Bernie Sanders, who actually honeymooned in the Soviet Union, you can't make this up. Or another radical socialist who will pretend to be a moderate in a general election and will inspire nobody. Look at the enthusiasm gap. Now, despite essentially running uncontested, President, he didn't need many people to show up in Iowa last night, but guess what? Massive amount of Iowa Republicans turned out to caucus for President Trump. Look at these reports. It was the most ever for a sitting president. And meanwhile, Democratic numbers, they're way down from the Obama years. As one article put it, quote, Democrats were counting on Barack Obama levels of enthusiasm, and they got Hillary Clinton numbers instead. And a friendly reminder, Hillary lost the state of Iowa and lost the election. And then fast forward to today, and now it's important to ask yourself, and this is for any election, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Look at your screen. Perhaps you'll find the answer there, because I think the answer is pretty clear. On every single promise, did the president make it? Did the president keep it? Now, by the way, these polls are now reflecting the president's tremendous success. Look at the Gallup poll out today showing that the president's approval numbers are at an all-time high. According to the same poll, Americans' confidence in the economy is higher than at any point in the past 2 decades. National satisfaction is the highest in nearly 15 years. In fact, it is the highest economic approval rating not only for Donald Trump, but for any president since George W. Bush enjoyed the stratospheric job approval ratings in the first few months after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. And that's not all. Look at this new Zogby poll. The president's approval rating is above 50%, an expanding base of minority and suburban voters. Surprise, surprise, it looks like the president's accomplishments impeachments are paying off, and Democrats' 3+ years of doing nothing, absolutely nothing, except conspiracy theories, lies, hoaxes, and witch hunts, are not particularly doing well for them. And tomorrow, the latest insane charade will officially be over. Thank God. The president will be acquitted with even possible bipartisan support. Even moderate Republican Susan Collins, she made a compelling case why she is voting no on both articles of impeachment. She is voting to acquit. And you, the American people, in 273 days, you will be the ultimate jury. You will render the final verdict, and you have the ability and the opportunity to once again shock the world. Joining us now with his reaction, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, I can't really describe it any better than saying, wow, you got one America, principles you and I have believed in our entire lives, conservatism, ending burdensome regulation, lower taxes, energy independence, conservative justices, securing our borders, fair trade deals, all of which we don't, taking out terrorists. They couldn't even stand for that tonight, Senator.
Well, Sean, I thought it was a terrific speech. I thought the president gave the single best speech I've ever seen him give. It was powerful, it was positive, it was uplifting, it was forward-looking, and it focused on the real successes for the American people. And the contrast, as you said, congressional Democrats, I thought the performance was stunning. Over the last 3 years, we've seen congressional Democrats getting worse and worse and worse at State of the Union addresses, but this is the worst I've ever seen. They wouldn't applaud for record low unemployment. They wouldn't applaud for record low African American unemployment. They wouldn't applaud for record low Hispanic unemployment. They wouldn't applaud for women. They wouldn't applaud for 12,000 new factories in the United States and a blue-collar boom. And I'll tell you the moment that I actually thought was the saddest and most revealing, early in the speech at least. When the president talked about 7 million people coming off of food stamps, there were congressional Democrats who hissed, who audibly hissed. Now think about what that reveals, that they are rooting for Americans in poverty to be trapped in dependence. That's 7 million people that have gotten jobs, that are providing for their kids, the single moms that have the pride of putting food on the table, and the Democrats are hissing. And it culminated in the moment at the end when Nancy Pelosi ripped that speech. It was disgraceful. It was disgusting. I was sitting 50 feet away from her, and it made me angry because what she showed and what congressional Democrats showed was contempt for America, that they won't root for the American people, and they won't show even the barest modicum of respect for the President of the United States. I thought the President did fantastic, and I think Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats were disgraceful tonight.
Yeah, it was an interesting moment, Senator. I know you didn't see it as I saw it on TV. The president talks about all these new jobs for women. And I saw a lot of women in white in the chamber tonight. And they just sat on their hands. I'm like, okay, I would think that would be something you want. Or a scholarship for a young woman.
Yes.
A future.
And that little girl, that 4th grade girl from Pennsylvania who wants to go to a school, who wants hope, and the Democrats' message is that child is going to remain trapped. The president called for Congress to pass my legislation, my school choice legislation, that is $10 billion a year, $100 billion over 10 years in federal tax credits for contributions to scholarship granting organizations to give that little girl and a million kids across America hope and school choice and vocational training, and the Democrats sat and glared. That's not right. And I got to say, what we saw tonight is really the manifestation of hatred. That today's Democratic Party, the only sentiment they have is they hate Donald Trump. You could see it as Pelosi ripped those pages, and that hatred consumes any other sentiment they might have. It was really, I was sad for America watching it, because it's not good for our country to see that vicious hatred manifested in half of Congress.
If we can't stand for a scholarship, if we can't, we can't agree on that, we've got a problem. You say that, Senator, and I'm listening to you very closely, and I will tell you, you get moments. It's not just President Trump they hate. You saw this on CNN with Don Lemon. They're snickering. Well, them there, them lines on a map, and they're mocking smelly Walmart shoppers. I like Walmart. Walmart, you get great deals.
Yeah.
Trump supporters, or irredeemable deplorables, or bitter Americans clinging to God. I'm guilty. Our Constitution, guilty. Our Bibles and our religion, guilty, guilty, guilty as charged. And I think these moments reveal how they really feel about we the people.
Yeah.
And it's not flattering. They don't like us, it seems.
Well, and when the president